My worth is my birthright.
My worth is my birthright.
I am worthy.
Born worthy.
My value is not determined by material things.
My value is not determined by material things.
Because I am worthy.
Born worthy.
Welcome to the Born Worthy podcast, a space where I speak from my lived experience, examining behaviors, leadership systems, womanhood, power, healing, and this lifelong process of becoming. I'm your host, Ayana Abdul-Raheem, aka Ayana the Blueprint. I have spent over a decade in law enforcement with the Trenton Police Department, assigned to juvenile, and I have moved across every system that touches young people, from the grassroots level to the federal level, bringing decision makers together. That experience afforded me the ability to see where systems break and where and why young people fall through the cracks. Today, I am the founder and head of the Timbuk2 Academy, an independent all-girls learning institution. And when I'm not with the girls, you can find me designing frameworks and corrective structures for institutions, schools, districts, and organizations seeking a more effective way of serving young people. Now, Born Worthy is actually a company, hence the name, the Born Worthy podcast. And I founded Born Worthy as a means to support the justice impact girls in my community. This podcast allows me to bring all of these things together to connect and share with you. Now, I won't always give you easy conversations, but I will give you honest conversations that invite you to think and reflect and challenge the way that you've always seen things. Today's episode may make some people uncomfortable, but my responsibility has never been about comfort. It's always been about truth and understanding. And if you work with youth in community, if you're leading a community, if you are an educator, or if you are shaping environments where children develop, that can be athletics, dance, all of the things. I really want you to tap in. Parents, I really want you to tap in and listen closely, because this might be something that you are reinforcing without even realizing it. So let's talk about it. When did trauma become the loudest thing in the room? Trauma. That's all you hear now. When did trauma become the loudest thing in the room? When did it become the first lens we use to see our children, and now the first lens that they are using to see themselves? This trauma is in classrooms, it's in youth programs, it's even showing up in community spaces, and honestly, it's showing up in how we even talk about our children, or we talk about children. Everywhere in youth work now, trauma. They have trauma. They've been through so much. There's a lot of trauma there. And I understand, as an educator and as one who orchestrates and develops curriculum, I do understand why the language exists. But what I'm noticing is that the more that we repeat this language, the more young people begin to define themselves by it. And it's turning into us raising a generation of young people who know how to lead and name their trauma and their pain, but they're not always being taught how to lead and name with their power. And I just want to say, I don't want this to be a conversation about denying trauma or dismissing trauma, because trauma does deserve care, and we should have these conversations about trauma, but it was never meant to become the child's identity. Let's distinguish something very important. There is a difference between acknowledging trauma and centering trauma. The acknowledgement of trauma, it means it teaches us how, it informs us in how we teach. And I know that, again, as an educator, it informs us in how we teach. It informs us in understanding the behavior. It informs us with the trust and pacing and the development of young people. Centering the trauma means that when you're centering something, it's becoming a part, it's becoming the identity. At least that is what I am seeing, this whole trauma centering happening. The curriculums that our young people are engaging in, they are revolving around what happened to the child instead of what's inside of the child. And I can firmly say the first thing in my experiences when I would send a referral to an agency, even for myself working within the police department, they would not be concerned about nothing else but what happened to the child. Well, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with her? And this is when I am, having conversations with them about who's being referred over to their agency. Never asking about what's inside of the child so they can use that to lead with it. And I tell young people all the time, acknowledging the trauma, this is what happened to you. But centering the trauma and becoming addicted to centering it, it's suggesting that this is actually who you are. And I feel like too many systems are crossing the line with this. Again, I'm speaking from experience. If the core of your curriculum is developing from the child's pain and not their capacity, are you developing them? Or are you defining them based off of their trauma? Young people tell me all the time, my students, young people that I work with in transition, that's the first thing they want to tell me is that they have trauma. When they want to get out of something or not be accountable for something, I automatically get this, I have trauma. And I always ask them, name the trauma. What is the trauma? And I'm going to be honest, many times they can't answer. They cannot answer. They look confused. They pause. They don't actually know what they're naming, which tells me something very important is that they did not arrive to the conclusion about having all of this trauma by themselves. Somebody is feeding them this language. Someone is telling them that they're doing X, Y, and Z, or they have X, Y, and Z because they have trauma. A system is telling them this. An adult is telling them this. A program is telling them this. And it's very dangerous because trauma without context, especially when you're working with young people who are still developing themselves, trauma without context becomes identity. Very dangerous. And we have to be very careful with that. They're young, they're still forming their sense of self. They're still forming their identity. So when using this trauma language and telling kids that they have trauma broadly and repeatedly, everywhere they go, somebody's telling them this, without grounding it, without breaking things down for them, it begins to replace the identity. And I'm watching this happen to our children every day in real time. I sit across children every day who can tell me how traumatized they are. And it's the only story that they know to tell about themselves. And then we say we're practicing PYD, positive youth development. Strengths-based learning. Where is it? Where is it? Because I need us to be honest here. What is happening within the scope of the frames of these curriculums, program after program, claiming to center strength-based positive youth development. Great frameworks, by the way. But yet, the emphasis still remains on the trauma. I've had young people sit in front of me, and again, I'm working with systems of children in and out of systems. And when I say systems, I'm speaking about the education system, I'm speaking about the justice system, the foster care system. I'm speaking about systems that serve children and young people. Different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, different communities, still all children. They're all doing it. And I've had young people sit in front of me and I work with them. And they've been in multiple programs. We call them serial program participants, especially if you are a system kid. You have been in every program and done every curriculum, sometimes repeated curriculums over and over. Why are you still not able to articulate positive things and attributes about yourself? Why are they not able to articulate and lead, even with introducing themselves or speaking about themselves? Why is that trauma always in the front? They are not able to define who they are beyond what they've been through. If these frameworks are working and if they're being applied correctly, then a young person should be able to apply it. Not only when they're in your care, but after they leave the care. And if they are not able to do that, then we're missing something. We're missing something. I want to talk about this internal power versus this whole survival thing. So, and I see this clearly when I work with, again, young people. What do you like about yourself? And I'm going to talk about the girls because I normally hear this from the girls. I'm pretty. My eyes are cute. I'm beautiful. Yeah, those things matter. You are. But where's the foundation? So we go deeper. How do you think? What are you good at? What do you bring into this space? What makes you powerful? And then it gets quiet. It gets quiet. And so in my teaching and in my practice, the silence from them tells me everything that I need to know. We really are not grounding young people in their internal power. We're not giving them the language, the tools for them to see who they are beyond their physical appearance and beyond their trauma. So they're growing up knowing how they look, and they can tell you what trauma they've experienced, but they are not able to tell you what they're capable of doing, what they're capable of accomplishing. And when I say that adults, we do this oftentimes and we don't know that we're doing it, here's an example. We say things like, you've been through so much. Look at you, you still standing. You don't look like what you've been through. I don't know how you made it. And we mean well, but young people here, this is what they're telling me. You didn't think I could do it. You weren't expecting for me to succeed in whatever task that they were expected to complete. And a lot of times it happened with graduation. It's like a milestone when we graduate from high school. It's like you made it through. You survived. You survived it. So survival becomes the bar. The power that they have within them, it continues to go unnamed. Their survival, you've been through so much. You don't look like what you've been through. Their pain gets the attention. Their hardship gets the praise. And I know that's not the intention, but that's where it lands. You didn't think I could make it. I surprised you, didn't I? No, you didn't surprise me because I knew you could do it the whole time. You didn't know that you could do it. And when we keep saying things like that, still standing, you've been through so much, this is what they're hearing. And then we step out into community, right? And we still talking about trauma and what we choose to center and what we choose to elevate. Trauma. Everyone has been through something. Everyone carries hardship. But the difference is not who has experienced the hardship. The difference is who has been trained to lead with it. Our children are being trained to lead with this hardship. So back to community. Let me stay focused. I am in the capital of New Jersey, Trenton, or Trenton, how we say here. 7 point something square miles, whole city. You can run across the whole city. It's not a big town. Gun violence here, violence, poverty, blight, all of the things, you name it. We know that there's gun violence here. We know that there's domestic violence here. We know that there's gender-based violence, sexual violence here. We know that the trauma exists here in this community. It's been this way since I was a child. Unsafe. So we don't have to figure out that the violence is present. So why do we continue to have campaigns that center violence? This is trauma. Stop the violence. Violence reduction. Violence prevention. Why do we have to have things that continue to name this? Continue to center it. We hear the sirens. We see all the headlines every day. And now with social media, you see people recording it. Why do we have to continue to remind our children of what is constantly broken? All of the initiatives center trauma and pain, hardship. Every initiative, somebody against violence. Every campaign, end the trauma, break the cycle. Why are we doing this? We are conscious. We see it every day. So I have to ask, where are the joy campaigns? Where is the beauty? Where is the opportunity for the imagination? And I'm not saying to ignore the reality. Again, we can see the violence. We hear it. Kids can't even sleep at night because you hear gunshots. You hear sirens all day long. So don't ignore it. But what I'm saying is the imbalance of it is harmful. So they go to programs and they talk about trauma. Somebody telling them they got trauma, right? Then they're in their community. They're literally walking through trauma every day. They see it every single day. And young people are not able to process how it's affecting them at their young ages. They're just doing what they do every day. And so then we have community initiatives. And then here's the community saying, more trauma. And that is exactly why I decided and made a conscious decision to do something different. I created the Born Worthy. Period. And there is a period after the why. I created Born Worthy. I didn't say put the guns down and stop hurting each other. I said you're born worthy. Period. Our children don't even understand what the word worthy means. But they can tell you about trauma. They can tell you what they don't have. But they stop at worthy. I want young people to understand something before anything else. You are worthy. Before you have to, somebody tell you got to fix something about yourself, before you start to explaining your story, before you start to perform anything, before you come out of that womb, you were birthed with this value. It's not about denying their reality, but the reality is that they are born worthy. Regardless of all of the stuff that's happening around them, or happening to them, or happening through them, they are still born with value and born with worth. So it's a shifting of the entry point. So instead of me asking them, what is wrong with you? I'm challenging you and I'm asking you, well, what makes you valuable? This is just as important as what happened to you. Or what's wrong with you? What do you bring? What are you bringing into this community with the people in the kids in your peers in your class, or the peers in your group if you go to a program, or the peers that you're playing sports with? What are you bringing? What's already inside of you? When people know that they are worthy, their behavior changes. And I am telling you, I see these changes in my students every day. I see it happening in real time. I hear them naming it. I didn't think that I had anything to offer, because somebody kept telling me that I was traumatized and I can't do this because this happened to me, and I'm not supposed to do this because that happened to me, and I'm supposed to behave this way because this happened to me. But now you told me I'm worthy. So I know that there's way more to me than my trauma. In the work that I do, I don't erase the trauma. It's contextualized. What happens to our children, it matters. They know that. I know that. Their experiences matter. They know that. I know that. But I refuse to allow for trauma to become the organizing force of their identity. A child, everyone, is always more than what hurt them. So in this practice, in this space, in my work, before the struggle centering, identity is centered. I work with identity first. They can't erase what happened to them. But just imagine all of these things happen to you and you don't even know how to walk through the world. You don't even know who you are. We must support young people in naming who they are, not just what they survived. And I want them to be able to confidently say that I'm going somewhere with my life. I can do X, Y, and Z because I'm disciplined. I have discernment. I know how to do these things. I can figure this problem out because I have this within me. My genius is this. Trauma is not going to erase my genius. It's not bigger than my worth. It's not bigger than what I have to offer to myself. It's not bigger than my purpose. Identity is always grounded first. Resilience stops being something that we hope for, and it starts to become something that they recognize within themselves. Trauma may shape part of their story, but it is not the author of their story. And young people deserve to be known for more than what hurt them. So when I say stop leading with the trauma, I'm not ignoring it. I'm not minimizing it. I refuse to live inside of a struggle story, and I refuse to pass it down to our children. I refuse to condition them in that capacity as if it's the whole story. What we prioritize in our spaces and in our communities, what we elevate in our spaces and in our communities, what we celebrate within our spaces, communities, in our families, that's what teaches value. And when pain is always centered, deficit will always become the story. And that is how they will introduce themselves when they go into spaces. From a deficit and not from power. And we rarely talk about this whole thing of celebrating survival, of beating the odds, of coming out of the fire. And again, I get it. I understand that. But when that survival continues to become the highest form of things that we praise, we're sending a message that struggle is what makes your life meaningful. You got to have some type of struggle to be important. That's what validates you. You're teaching them that struggle is what gets recognized. We all struggle. That struggle is just a chapter of your book. It's not the title of your book. It is not who you are. And if everything we talk about starts with trauma and pain, when we're talking about our communities, when we're speaking about who we are as a collective people, when are we teaching power to our children? When do we teach them power? When do they get to witness the power of people? How to lead with their power? I'm going to elaborate a little bit more because this is something that I see a lot. And it happens when we have persons who, of course, come out of a hardship situation. They want to come back to the community and they want to share their story with our students. And it's a great thing to share. It's a great thing for our young people to see these things. But even in that, people feel like they have to lead with their struggle story to be impactful, to have an impact on them. So they'll come and they'll introduce themselves. And I am very particular about this and about speakers when they come talk to my students, because they will introduce themselves and list everything that they've been through. I was a teen mom. I dropped out of high school. I grew up poor. I didn't have support. I had to do it all on my own. I went through this by myself. I survived this. My mom this. My dad incarcerated. We didn't have this. And before we even get to know who they are today, they have saturated us with all of this trauma. And there's nothing wrong with overcoming adversity. There is strength in that. But I am more interested in someone walking into a classroom and walking into a space with young people and first showing our girls who they have become. Show them your discipline. Show them your leadership. Show them your thinking. Show them what your life looks like today. And just sit back and watch their minds expand. I'm telling you, they're going to think, there's no way. There's no way. Wow, look at who this woman is. Look at who this man is. Then you tell them what you have overcome. That is what truly shifts a young person's imagination. They get to see the possibility of what before they hear all of the pain. And I'm going to be honest with you. Our girls are dealing with those same hardships. They're dealing with it. Their moms were teen moms. They're growing up with their mothers. They're navigating. I told you, we're in Trenton, New Jersey. They're navigating all of this trauma and all of this complex environments every day. They have family members who are incarcerated. They've lost siblings to gun violence. They've experienced sexual violence. So you're not telling them nothing that they have not experienced already or that they're not dealing with every day. And when adults begin with their struggle story, they think it's impressive. I get it. But it's like you're undermining what the girls are already familiar with. Familiar does not expand the mind of a child. It does not expand what a child sense is possible. The exposure does. What stretches them is witnessing something or someone who has found themselves, someone who has built a life, someone who understands who they are beyond what they went through. I could even say for myself, I grew up in the same community that these our girls did. I lived on one of the worst streets in the city of Trenton, Stuyvesant Avenue. Nothing but violence. During an era where crack was heavy and just everywhere in our communities. I've seen bodies stretched out. Fights, violence. They don't believe I'm from Trenton. When I tell the girls that I grew up where I grew, they look at me like, no. You from here? Yes, I'm from here. That is inspiring to them. And they've said it. Yes, I share with them some adversities that I've experienced, but I never lead with it. They got to see something different. They got to experience someone different. They got to experience other people who are willing to stand and be powerful and stand in their power so that they can see what is possible first. And then you can connect with them on that more personal level. But that makes a child proud to see a product that looks like them without having to hear all of that stuff first. And I strongly believe that struggle alone is not what makes a person substantive. Identity does. That is a powerful thing for especially young black girls to see a black woman or a black man who can step into a space and know who they are and being proud of who they are. I just want us to get out of this habit of believing that trauma and pain is what makes us important or interesting or worthy of being heard. And leading with this pain. You are not powerful because of what broke you. You are powerful because of who you chose to become. And to be honest, the trauma is not what's holding most young people back. It's the fact that the power in them has simply not been cultivated. Most of our kids are resilient. They have to be living in these environments. They have to be experiencing what's happening within their families. They are so resilient, they don't even understand and know it, because to them it's just what they do every day. It's just every day. So it's our responsibility to slow things down for them. Name these things for them. Show them all of what they're surviving and how it reveals the power that they have with them, and let them piece that stuff together. You notice when people step outside of community that was chaotic, they sit back and they realize, oh my gosh, I was living in that. You don't even know it because you're in it every day. They have no idea what strengths they truly have and the strength that they have within them. So we have to slow it down for our children. And it is a process. And it is tedious. But you got to work with them on it every single day. It is heartbreaking to ask a child, what are your talents? And they don't say anything back to you. What are you great at doing? And they don't say anything. They don't have shoulder shrugs. But then you ask them what's wrong or who did something to you. Boom, they shooting them out. Answers coming. Just pouring. Pain has been the only story that they know to tell about them. So somebody taught them that. That is a conditioning. Something wrong with you. Oh, you don't have this at home? Well, that's why you're acting this way. This is a conditioning, and it's not a failure on our children. It is a failure on adults. It is a failure on these educational systems. It's a failure on all of the systems that our children engaged in every day. And who's benefiting from all of this trauma first and feeding them this trauma? From my experience, institutions that need justification rather than transformation, systems that want to lower expectations for our children instead of building the capacity for them to raise the bar. So let's just keep talking about their trauma, what they cannot do, and what they've been through. Professionals who don't want to be held accountable for not producing any outcomes. So let's blame it on the trauma. Pain makes young people's understandable. Power is unforgettable. Power is confidence. Power is a disruptor. And that is why in my work, I always lead with power. Grounded in gratitude. Grounded in your power. Identity first. These environments are not changing. They're not going anywhere. They've been this way and they live in it. I know the environments and the experiences that they're navigating. I know what constant exposure shapes their psychology and how it's affecting them. They're not able to name it. But I can name it. And I can take these things and develop things for them so that they're coming out powerful. I don't start with what happens to you. I know what happened to you. But I don't need to remind you what happened to you. I can start with your strengths. That's the hard part. So I'm going to leave with this. We will acknowledge trauma, but we will not center the trauma. We will teach strength before struggle, capacity before pain, power before survival. Introduce yourself with your gifts. Stand in your brilliance. Tell your story in the right order. You were not born to just survive and to be a trauma magnet. You were born worthy. So stop leading with this pain and start leading with the power. Trauma may inform the story, but power should always lead it. And that's all I have for today. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode. If this conversation resonated with you, I want to hear your feedback. I want you to share it with your colleagues, your friends, your family. And most importantly, if you're interested in learning about the work of the Timbuk2 Academy, please follow us on the social media platforms. Connect with us. Timbuk, 2 Academy on all social media platforms. You can also connect with Born Worthy, which is Born Worthy, period. www.iambornworthy.com. If you want to follow my personal journey and tap into some more of my insights and philosophies, you can connect with me on all of my social media platforms. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and all of the things at Ayana the Blueprint. And I ask you to subscribe to the podcast and continue to follow. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. I need no external validation.
I need no external validation.
Because that validation comes from within.
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 And it comes from me.
And it comes from me.